They call him the biggest fraud in history, a €115 million superstar destroyed by a single burger. He arrived as a king but left as a villain. 7 goals in 4 years. Every minute he spent walking on the pitch cost the club €70,000. The world laughed at him, calling him fat, lazy, and finished. But what if I told you laziness was just a lie covering up a horrific medical tragedy? In this video, we decode the injury files and the psychology to reveal the truth. Why Eden Hazard didn't just fail to run, but refused to run for Real Madrid. In the summer of 2019, the Santiago Bernabeu shook. 50,000 Madridistas filled the stands just to witness the moment a new king emerged from the tunnel. That was the day Eden Hazard officially donned the royal white jersey with a record price tag of €115 million. People called him the next Galactico, the heir to the throne vacated by Cristiano Ronaldo. But when the flashbulbs faded and the season began, that dream quickly turned into a brutal nightmare. What Real Madrid received was not a lethal goal-scoring machine, but a player showing up at the preseason training camp with 5 kilograms of excess fat. This wasn't just malicious tabloid gossip, it was the truth admitted by Hazard himself in L'Équipe. It's true, I cannot hide it. When I'm on vacation, I'm on vacation. I put on 5 kilos, I went up to 80 kilograms and I lost it in 10 days. But in Madrid, where perfection is the doctrine, that confession was akin to a death sentence. Instead of magical dribbles, Hazard's image in the public eye became inextricably linked to Burger King memes, late-night parties, and the unbelievable sluggishness of a top-tier athlete. Look at the numbers, because numbers don't lie, and they are telling a horrifying story. In 4 long years in Spain, Hazard's goal tally stopped at 7. Yes, a measly 7 goals. Fewer than what a center-back like Sergio Ramos could score in a single bad season. Financial experts have calculated that, factoring in his colossal salary and transfer fee, every minute Eden Hazard spent on the pitch burned through approximately €70,000 of Real Madrid's money. Imagine that he only needed to stand and breathe on the grass for 1 minute, and Real Madrid had already squandered a small fortune. Marca, the media mouthpiece closest to the club, did not hesitate to run the headline, calling this the worst transfer in football history. But what outraged fans the most wasn't just the injuries or the weight, it was the attitude. The label of lazy followed Hazard like a specter from London to Madrid. His former Chelsea teammate John Obi Mikel once exclaimed on a podcast, "Eden Hazard is the laziest footballer I have ever seen. He never trained. While we were working, he was just standing there looking around waiting for us to finish." It wasn't just Mikel. Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, and Maurizio Sarri, managers obsessed with discipline, all had to tear their hair out over his lackadaisical training attitude. But at Chelsea, he answered his critics with superb performances every weekend. At Real Madrid, however, when his legs no longer obeyed him, that laziness became a thorn in their side. People saw Hazard strolling on the pitch when the team lost possession. They saw him laughing and joking with Chelsea players moments after Real had been eliminated from the Champions League. Millions of fans asked the same question. Why did a player who once terrorized the entire Premier League become so toothless? Why did he refuse to run for the greatest jersey in the world? Is Eden Hazard truly a genius con artist? A lazy man who came to Madrid just to coast into retirement on a pile of money? Or is the collapse behind this story a tragedy of sports medicine and the conflict between a free artistic soul and the cruel industrial machine of modern football? To understand this, we cannot simply look at his waistline. We need to turn back time to return to the place where Hazard's gravity once mesmerized the entire world. To understand the tragedy of Eden Hazard in Madrid, we must first understand the Prince of London. We cannot simply label him a failure without acknowledging the sheer gravity of his talent that once pulled the entire football world into his orbit. For 7 years at Stamford Bridge, Eden Hazard was not just a player. He was a system unto himself. He was the undisputed Prince of Stamford Bridge. In the Premier League, arguably the most physically demanding league on the planet, Hazard reigned supreme not by outrunning his opponents but by outthinking them. There was a tacit agreement in West London, a silent contract between Hazard, his managers, and his teammates. It was simple: you run for me and I will win for you. Tactically, the Chelsea ecosystem was built to camouflage his flaws. Cesar Azpilicueta or Marcos Alonso didn't just defend their flank, they defended Hazard's flank. They did the dirty work, the tracking back, the lung-busting sprints, so that Eden could conserve his energy for those explosive 3-second bursts that decided matches. When Hazard had the ball, time seemed to stop. He was a gravity well. He didn't need to run into space. He made the space come to him. He would stand still, sole of his foot on the ball, baiting 2-3 defenders to lunge at him before dissolving through them like smoke. As his former teammate Cesc Fabregas once noted, Eden is the player who plays the most with the ball. He is the one who takes the team from the back to the front. He doesn't need to run to be the best. In this environment, his aversion to training wasn't seen as a sin. It was seen as a quirk of genius. It was the price Chelsea paid for magic. He was the kid in class who never studied but still got an A+. But then came the call from the White House. Real Madrid, the Galacticos. If Chelsea was a warm home that nurtured his eccentricities, Real Madrid was a cold industrial cathedral of excellence. And here lies the first fatal miscalculation, the ecosystem shock. Hazard walked into the Santiago Bernabeu and was handed the number 7 shirt. This was not just a piece of fabric, it was a heavy mantle woven from the sweat and obsession of Cristiano Ronaldo. For a decade, the Madridistas had been conditioned to worship the cult of the machine. Ronaldo was the first to arrive at training and the last to leave. He was the embodiment of discipline, ice baths, and caloric deficits. He was a robot built to destroy records. And then came Eden. Hazard was the antithesis of Ronaldo. If Ronaldo was the result of science and suffering, Hazard was the embodiment of pure hedonistic joy. He played football the way a child plays in the park for the fun of it. He didn't care about stats. He cared about the nutmegs, the flicks, the beauty of the moment. Real Madrid made a catastrophic error in profiling. Florentino Perez spent over 100 million euros believing he was buying a replacement for Ronaldo's goals. He expected a man who would guarantee 50 goals a season. But Hazard had never been that man. Even at his peak, he was a creator, a playmaker, a facilitator who preferred an assist to a tap-in. The tragedy is not that Eden Hazard changed when he got to Madrid. The tragedy is that he didn't change at all. He arrived in Spain with the same habits that made him a legend in England. The relaxed diet, the aversion to gym work, the belief that talent alone would suffice. But the gravity of Real Madrid is unforgiving. In this ecosystem, if you don't run, you die. The Bernabeu crowd does not tolerate artists who suffer for their art. They demand gladiators who bleed for the badge. The defensive structure at Madrid did not exist to serve him. The Spanish press did not find his laziness charming. They found it insulting. The freedom he enjoyed in London evaporated, replaced by the crushing pressure of the price tag and the ghosts of Galacticos past. Hazard was still the same person, but he was a freshwater fish thrown violently into the ocean. And as he stood there smiling and training while the Madrid press sharpened their knives, he didn't realize that the ground beneath his feet was already beginning to crumble. The ecosystem that once elevated him was now preparing to crush him. But even the harshest critics couldn't predict that it wouldn't be the pressure that broke him first. It would be something far more physical. It would be a single moment, a split second that turned the lazy genius into a broken man. If we must pinpoint the exact moment the Eden Hazard of yesterday vanished forever, it wasn't the day he signed the contract, nor was it the day he stepped onto the scale with a heavy stomach. That fatal moment had a specific date, time, and location. It was the night of November 26, 2019, the Santiago Bernabeu, Real Madrid versus Paris Saint-Germain. Many have forgotten, but before that cursed night, Hazard was finally beginning to soar. He was gliding across the turf, connecting telepathically with Karim Benzema. For the first time, the Bernabeu saw the silhouette of a true Galactico. But then, in the 63rd minute, his compatriot Thomas Meunier lunged in. It was a challenge that looked innocuous at first glance, yet it triggered a brutal butterfly effect that would utterly destroy the career of Real Madrid's most expensive signing. The initial diagnosis was merely a bruise, but the reality was a microfracture in his right ankle, the very same ankle that had been reinforced with a metal plate back in 2017. And this is where the science of collapse began to operate. To understand why Hazard could not run, we must look at his biomechanics. Hazard was never a sprinter who relied on straight-line speed like Gareth Bale. His game was built on a low center of gravity, violent hip rotations, and extreme ankle flexibility to change direction in phone booth spaces. When surgeons inserted a titanium plate to stabilize the bone, they inadvertently stripped him of his greatest weapon, fluidity. Dr. Jose Gonzalez, a leading medical expert in Spain, warned in AS, if a player feels discomfort in the ankle, the brain automatically adjusts the body to avoid pain. He will change his running gait without even realizing it. This is the tragedy of the compensation mechanism. When the right ankle locked up, Hazard began shifting his weight to his left side or altering how his foot struck the ground. The consequence, other muscle groups were forced into overdrive. This is why, after the ankle healed, Hazard suffered a cascade of muscle tears, hamstring strains, and adductor issues. It was a cycle from hell injury, rehab, loss of fitness, return to training, body imbalance, new injury. Fans saw a player who was getting fat and lazy, but sports scientists saw a body that was screaming. Hazard didn't refuse to run to spite the club. He could not run because his hardware had suffered a catastrophic system failure. Remember Kaká? The Brazilian angel arrived at Real Madrid as the best player in the world, but chronic knee issues turned him into a shadow. Or Michael Owen and his hamstrings. Geniuses who rely on explosive bursts are like Formula One cars. They are incredibly fast, but their engineering is incredibly fragile. One loose screw in Hazard's case, that right ankle, and the entire machine shatters when hitting top speed. The Hazard post-2019 was a man playing with fear. Every time a defender closed in, the memory of Meunier's tackle flashed before his eyes. He stopped dribbling. He stopped taking risks. He chose the safe back pass not out of laziness, but out of a primal survival instinct. Hazard himself admitted in a moment of painful honesty, "I am not me anymore. My body has changed and I have to accept that." At this point, the story is no longer about a lazy guy eating burgers. It is the story of an artist stripped of his brush, imprisoned in a body that no longer obeys him. But if physical pain was what killed his career, it was his mindset, which we are about to explore, that prevented him from rising from the ashes. We have analyzed the broken ankle, and we have dissected the unforgiving tactical systems. But to truly understand why Eden Hazard's time at Real Madrid ended in silence rather than glory, we must look beyond the physical. We must look into the soul of the man himself. We must confront the philosophy that defined his entire existence, hedonism. For years, the world labeled him lazy. Pundits screamed that he wasted his potential. But perhaps we were all looking at Eden Hazard through the wrong lens. Hazard never hid who he was. While his peers were obsessed with Ballon d'Ors and goal records, Hazard was chasing something entirely different: happiness. In a moment of disarming honesty, he once said, "I don't want to look like Messi or Ronaldo. I want to go home, play with my kids, and have a nice dinner." This is the core of the problem. For players like Cristiano Ronaldo or Zlatan Ibrahimovic, football is a war. It is a job. Pain is merely fuel for the engine, and suffering is the necessary price of greatness. When they fall, they force themselves back up through sheer willpower because their identity depends on being the best. But for Eden Hazard, football was never a job. It was a game. It was a playground. And the fundamental rule of a playground is simple: you play only as long as it is fun. When the injuries mounted, when the Spanish press turned hostile, and when the medical room became his second home, the fun evaporated. The playground turned into a prison. And unlike the machines of modern football who are wired to suffer for legacy, Hazard simply turned off the switch. He was not built to grind without joy. This mindset makes him a relic, a stranger in a strange land. Modern football has undergone a brutal industrial revolution. It is a game now governed by GPS heat maps, lactate threshold tests, and high-intensity pressing structures. It is a world where athleticism often supersedes artistry, where the gym is more important than the garden. In this context, Eden Hazard was the last of the Mohicans of street football. He represented a dying era where pure, unadulterated talent was enough. He was the kid who ate a burger before the match and then destroyed the opposition because the ball was his friend, not his employee. Real Madrid expected him to evolve. They wanted him to adopt the Mamba mentality. But you cannot ask a jazz musician to suddenly become a military drill sergeant. It is not in their DNA. So to answer the question in our title, why did the laziest Galactico refuse to run for Real Madrid? He didn't refuse to run because he was arrogant. He didn't refuse to run because he wanted to sabotage the team. He refused to run because he could no longer find a reason to. Without the smile, without the freedom, without the joy of the ball at his feet, running was just running. It was pointless physical exertion. He was a hedonist who found himself in a factory, and when the music stopped playing, he simply decided it was time to stop dancing. He didn't betray Real Madrid. In a strange, poetic way, he stayed loyal to himself until the very end. When the history books of Real Madrid are written, the chapter on Eden Hazard will be brief and bitter. It will be remembered as a financial catastrophe, a tale of what could have been, and a monument to missed opportunities. Statistically, his time in Spain was an unmitigated failure. But football is not played on spreadsheets. It is played in the memory of those who watch it. And to define Eden Hazard solely by his scars is to misunderstand the beauty of his existence. In an era obsessed with efficiency where players are judged by kilometers run and expected goals, Hazard was a beautiful anomaly. He was a glitch in the matrix of modern sport. He didn't play for history. He played for the moment. He didn't play to dominate. He played to entertain. His legacy isn't the trophies he missed in Madrid. It is the thousands of defenders he left dizzy in London. It is the reminder that even at the highest level, football can still be just a game, imperfect, spontaneous, and human. So this leaves us with a question for you. What do you truly value? Do you admire the perfect machine like Cristiano Ronaldo, who sacrificed everything for perfection? Or do you find yourself falling for the flawed genius like Hazard, who showed us that you don't need to be perfect to be magical? Perhaps there is no wrong answer. But for Eden, the answer was always simple. As he walked away from the game, retiring at just 32, he didn't leave with regret. He left with a smile and a simple truth: I have done everything I dreamed of. I have told myself that when I stop having fun on the pitch, I will stop. I have peace. Now, it's time to enjoy a beer. Farewell, Eden. The game will be faster without you, but it will certainly be a lot less fun.